Now with power, drop it. Power panel. Thank you. Shout out to all. David Schuster with you guys. Told you it was a power panel. Told you. and those that opening will be updated once a decade. We promise. So
not to fall behind.
Yeah. So we got an exciting show for you guys. I'm going to present the second hour. So I'm psyched about that. Tucker Carlson's crew basically come out and say, "Oh yeah, the right wing's going to elect a fascist." So apparently they're here for it. They know it. So that's the state of the Republican Party. We'll talk about that in the second hour. And there's so many more exciting stories. So without further ado, what are we doing? Let's do the news.
Oh, geez. Okay, let's jump right into it. Whatever else you might think about the situation at the border, I think we can all agree that it is a serious situation that requires serious people with serious ideas discussing it. I believe that we finally have that with Ted Cruz. Take a look.
So it's past midnight. I'm standing on the shore of the Rio Grande. The water is right behind me. I'm down on the Texas border along with 18 senators. We made the trip to see the crisis that is playing out. We've already gone to detention facilities that are overrun. Many of them with families, small children. We saw multiple mothers who were nursing infant babies who had just crossed over and were being housed in outdoor holding pens where they were sleeping on the floor and nursing their babies.
Ted Cruz's normal shtick where he like pretends to have empathy and a bit of gravitas, that seems out of place in the Senate chamber. When he's dragged some reluctant cameraman down to a random bush near the water, it just seems even more ridiculous. Dude, get out of the underbrush. What are you doing? What do you both think about this?
Yeah. So first of all, I think you're being unfair to Ted Cruz's audition tape for Survivor, Cucked in Cancun. I thought he hit it out of the park.
Yeah. While he is not naked, thankfully, he's always afraid. He's so afraid.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things here. It also, what was that? The one where they're always whispering and then people are yelling in the background. The horror movie. It was like
it's the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, Blair Witch Project. There you go. He's like, I saw immigrant women. I'm so scared. Right. So I mean, I like the twist at the end where he's like concerned about detainee conditions. Oh, is that what we're concerned about now? Because Ted, it didn't seem like you were concerned about that for 4 years under Trump. Oh, what's the big deal about cages? I mean, cages are fine. I mean, they're for animals. They're also for humans. Now he's like, I'm out here in the bush. I'm scared alone and partially naked. But aren't these detainees? What's happening to them? I can't believe it. Come on, man. Come on. Other people are allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that. I mean, I thought mainly he was there because he's like, this is where the Rio Grande is, but we can't say it, by the way. Rio Grande also behind this screen. Just okay. And he might have done that in his backyard. I don't know. But and then somebody whispers, Ted, Mexico's on the other side of the river. He's like, I'm making a break for it. He jumps and starts swimming. He's got to get to Cancun somehow.
Well, given how much his fellow Republicans, and by the way, only Republicans that are on this trip, he's lucky that he wasn't pushed in because I mean, his fellow Republicans hate this guy. But a couple of things. I think we should be happy that there's finally a Mexico expert who is there along the border. And, because Ted Cruz, at the time that he spent in Cancun just a couple of weeks ago when he decided to abandon Texas in the middle of a deadly winter storm, who better for the Republicans to put along the border and be the face of their efforts there than Texas, Cancun, Ted Cruz. The other part about it is later in the tape, he goes on and points and says, the cartel, we've heard the cartel right there. Yeah, he hears voices and says, that's the cartel. How does he know that? Does he have the special Ted Cruz, Cancun eye goggles that help him see the cartel? I mean, it's insane. And in all seriousness, if the Republicans did not tell Ted Cruz in advance, maybe this is not such a good idea. Maybe you should lay low on all things Mexico for at least a little while. If no Republican spoke up about this, the Republican Party is in even worse shape than any of us think. This was pathetic.
Yeah. But to be fair, David, the cartel might recognize him. They're like, dude, that's Ted Cruz. Remember, he was at the resort the other week.
Yeah, he said that they were mocking the Border Patrol. I think they were just mocking him specifically, and it's not just Mexicans. We do it here too. I think that video by Ted Cruz was pretty perfect, actually, as a bit of border xenophobia, hysteria, propaganda by the right. In that, it notably did not include any Mexicans. There was no people. Now, look, part of this is Biden's fault. He doesn't want cameras in the places where people are being held. They should totally change that. That sort of policy was wrong under Trump. It's wrong now. But if you could get cameras in there, I don't know that Ted Cruz would have wanted to do a video there, because you can't show all of those people in horrid situations without making some of the people watching the video think, hey, shouldn't we treat them better? And that's the thing. While Ted Cruz wants to make this a big deal because he thinks it might hurt Biden, and he, in some hypothetical world under Biden, he would want to change border policy. It's not because he cares about the human suffering, that kids are being held, that in theory they might be separated from their families. This is xenophobia about people absent any humanity whatsoever. We don't acknowledge their humanity. Ted Cruz expresses no humanity. It's like a perfect sort of vague. Republican politics is so disconnected from the actual intersection of government policy on people's lives and how that might be shifted to create a more equitable world with less human suffering in it.
But it's also buffoonish, right? I mean, it's like somebody said to Ted Cruz, hey, because you're doing a documentary style film, make sure to point back there at the darkness because, viewers really like that. I mean, it was silly. This was like a terrible Saturday Night Live sketch, or as somebody posted on social media, this was like the absolute worst series imaginable on Netflix. Bear Grylls, he is not. And oh, by the way, that vest, I think the only thing missing, I just am surprised that he wasn't wearing like a bulletproof vest if he wanted to make the point about xenophobia and how dangerous it is along the border. But I mean, it was laughable. And again, the guy has no self-awareness. And I think that's why, Democrats, I don't think need to be afraid of somebody like Ted Cruz, who is as much of a buffoon and lack of self-awareness as Donald Trump. I think they need to be worried about other Republicans who are a little bit more serious.
Yeah, so to build on the points you guys are making, first of all, I love when the local newscasters are like, earlier today, there was something interesting happening behind me, but it's not there anymore. I don't know why I'm in this shot. So maybe he was taking his cues from there. And look, to John's point, if he showed detainees suffering under Biden, it might increase Biden's popularity in the right wing. So that's another reason why he wouldn't want to show it. In fact, he moved past that mom comment real quick, and then in the rest of the video, it was like, oh, scary Latinos. I mean, not me, but the other guy, the Mexicans. I mean, immigrants. I mean, I'm also an immigrant, but scary people that you hate that look like me, but you get it, right? So that's why he gets confused with his talking points, because he's like, wait, do I say Biden's a terrible guy? But if I do, Republicans might like him more. But the number one problem is how fake he is.
Yeah.
John said it earlier. I mean, how do you watch that smarmy guy and not know he's faking it? I mean, look, to be fair, that's on the Democratic side too. I mean, Democrats love fake politicians. I mean, give them a good Kamala Harris laugh. And if you point out that that laugh doesn't sound that organic, oh, how dare you? That's a beloved politician. The politicians are so real. If you say so, brother. And then last thing is, I can never stomach the irony of Cuban American Republicans like Ted Cruz telling us we shouldn't let immigrants in. Cubans have complete amnesty. They get to America any illegal way they like, and instantly they get literal amnesty and they're allowed to stay here. I don't mind that. But if you say that's the rule for Cubans, but the rest of the Latinos we're gonna kick in the face when they get here, and the rest of the planet we're gonna throw dirt on, and then we're gonna send a Cuban guy whose family, generally speaking, and they came through Canada, but same concept, left Cuba, got here somehow, and then says, "Oh well, it was, but I want different rules for you. I want you to suffer and not have any of the advantages that I had." So it's kind of rubbing it in everybody's face, like we're the bad guys. But again, for Republican voters, that's what they're here for. They like bad guys, so they're going to vote for that heel.
In just a second, I want to show you very briefly something that arguably might be more embarrassing than the video we just showed you. Really fast though, only because it's a Friday show. I felt a bit of nostalgia watching this because almost nobody watching this is going to remember the period of TYT that I'm going to refer to, but Cenk probably will, maybe Brett. There was a brief period where we used to send Dave Kohler via green screen to do location reporting. Cenk, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
He did live hurricane reports. He reported from the surface of Mars. I would have loved to send him to some random bush, the Rio Grande, to do this. Maybe someday when we can all be in a studio again, we can make that happen. Anyway, so Ted Cruz is obviously a fun guy. He's a guy's guy. He likes to joke around. So he has some new merch. He tweeted about, show you're a proud member of the Cruz crew. Get your spring break gear right now. And it's a shirt with McConnell in the front, MAGA in the back. I don't know what message he thinks he's sending with that slogan. I don't like it. And I don't even know, politically, he doesn't generally seem to get along with McConnell. Why is he branding himself as McConnell in the front? I get that he's trying to be cool, and either he gets or he doesn't get that he's talking about spring break and talking about a Cruz crew when he just got in trouble for a tropical vacation. I just don't, he's just not cool. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, there's so many amazing things about that. But in terms of its mission is probably to make sure that if you know how some portion of the right wing has this thing about chastity, don't watch porn, to save yourself for marriage and stuff. Well, if you need to do that, this would be your best tool for that. You put this shirt on and you ain't getting laid before marriage. Trust me. Okay. I mean, who looks at that shirt and thinks oh, the guy who put this on is probably really cool. Come on, I mean, even if you thought that, right before you'd be like, you know what, forget it.
Well, since this is Friday, and I tend to like to try to look at the bright side on things, maybe we should be grateful that it's just the T-shirt and that Ted Cruz is not actually modeling this tank top himself, because I know I'll confess that I have gained some pounds over the pandemic, and from all the photographs, clearly Ted Cruz has as well. There's certain people who should not be wearing tank tops, so at least he's just advertising the shirt and he's not putting himself in it. But the more serious point in all of this, I think, is look, Joe Biden, for all the things that he said at his press conference, he was absolutely right when he said every time of year, except for the pandemic last year, January, February, March, there is always a surge in people who are trying to cross the border. It's up from March compared to February, which compared to January is the same thing 2 years ago. So this crisis, if you want to call it a crisis or a situation, it is exactly the same as it was 2 years ago. And this idea that all of a sudden Republicans are now spotting something that's going on to the Biden administration that hasn't happened before, that's nonsense. And it goes along with the nonsensical nature of Ted Cruz's merchandise. And anybody who really wants to buy this stuff, God bless them. God save them.
No, I want to make more fun of the T-shirt. So first of all, look, can't attest to whether Ted Cruz is an attractive gentleman or not, but it's an interesting sign of what they think of their voters that they chose the ugliest picture of Ted Cruz to put on a shirt, right? It's like if I put on a shirt, a picture of me with a double chin or, on a bad day, triple chin, why? Why would I choose to do that, right? Why am I trying to turn off the people that are on my side? And they think, oh yeah, we have redneck voters and they'll like this. Why did Ted Cruz do the mullet in the first place? The guy went to Harvard. Mullet, Ted, mullet. You know why? Because he's a pander bear. And he thinks, okay, my voters like people who look like this. So yeah, sure, what do there's not a single person at Harvard who had a mullet. Okay, let's just understand who Ted Cruz is. So the way that he's pandering here is just it's so stupid and annoying. If you're a right winger, you should be more annoyed than I am. That dude didn't want to have a mullet. He's basically making fun of you. It's and then what was it? The Cruz Brews or whatever the thing, or Clues
Cruz Crew.
Cruz Crew. That's not a thing. And the McConnell in the front. No, you idiot! I know you're trying to pander to Republican voters, but the Republican voters don't like Mitch McConnell. They only vote for him because he's a Republican in Kentucky. His popularity among Republican voters is terrible, especially after he gave the speech against Trump. But he thinks like, oh, I really like McConnell. Boy, I'd love to be Senate minority or majority leader one day. I'd say McConnell on the front, right. But also like mullets in the back or whatever you people are.
Well, mullets and tank tops, though, Jink, they do go together, right? I mean, can we establish that they? I mean, that's a style, especially when it's warm out.
Cenk, you think we should take the first break?
All right, yeah, right. Especially in Cancun. No, anyways, all right, yes, let's take a quick break here. We've got more Republicans we'll make fun of when we come back.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
We're back. At least during the break, at least to read your comments. Towels from on high. I wish I'd read this during the clip. Ted Cruz's new shirt is his attempt to become the unifying piece of the new Republican coalition. McConnell in the front, MAGA in the back. It's practically begging to be made into a Wheels Off the Bus cartoon. So I like that, but there's actually a really serious point in there that I missed. This is the knuckleheads in the Cruz team thinking, oh, the way we win the presidency in 2024 is by reaching out to the establishment Republicans and MAGA at the same time and threading that needle. So we'll say McConnell in the front and MAGA in the back, but we'll make it super ugly with a mullet, and so that'll appeal to our voters, etc. No, but you're trying to thread a needle that doesn't exist. The Republican voters hate McConnell. They love Trump. They want MAGA in the front, the back, and the middle. So as usual, Ted Cruz, political instincts, not quite right. Now, some shout outs to Twitch. We're going to Twitch early. Okay, I got to get on this train before it takes off. The One Wing Dragon gifted a sub, so he's a good person. It's not the only marker of a good person, but God bless. Retoriku gifted a sub. Barkley T gifted a sub. Care Chung, 4 months of Bezos bucks. Thanks, TYT. You all keep it real and keep us informed. As I think a lot of you know now, if you have Amazon Prime, it is free for you to subscribe on Twitch to us, but we get the revenue anyway. Ogumel has been with us for 8 months. Happy Friday. He says, love you all. Wish Ted Cruz would stay in that brush and never come out. Fair enough. And Adarasik gave 500 bits. We love it. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. And speaking of Twitch, Comment Room's on tonight. So don't forget at 9 o'clock Eastern tonight, Brett Ehrlich, Ariana Vega, Brooke Marks, Jordan Ewell, That's an amazing crew. You'll love that. That's super fun. Twitch.tv/TYT. By the way, I'm not saying that you could be a triple member, and if you were a triple member, that you would be way cooler than the average person, like probably by 2 orders of magnitude. And the way to be a triple member is you could hit the join button below on YouTube. You can do it for free on Twitch if you have Amazon Prime, or you can just pay on Twitch. God bless either way. And then you go to tyt.com/join. Now, do you have to do all 3? No. Would you be a hero if you did? I guess. Okay. You could also upgrade from the join button below. You could also upgrade at tyt.com/upgrade on our website. And finally, Marcus Otero on YouTube Super Chat said Ted Cruz is literally pointing at the shadow on the cave wall and telling his followers to be afraid. That's a good reference. Exactly right. And if you will, the Neanderthal thinking in the Republican Party is like, yes, me afraid of immigrants, look like you wait. Okay, we'll be back. Young Turks, Cenk, John, and David with you guys today. So let's do it, John. More news.
Okay, let's do it. Yesterday in Georgia, Brian Kemp signed the Republican-led and only Republican voted on voter suppression bill in his office, literally under a picture, a painting of a plantation, which is sort of perfect. Outside that door was a black state legislator. This is Representative Park Cannon. And she was trying to get into the room by very politely knocking on it to ask him about the bill, to express her concerns about it. And I want you to take a look at a video of what happened as she was doing that.
The governor is signing a bill that affects all Georgians. Why is he doing it in private? And why is he trying to keep elected officials who are representing us out of the process?
Exactly. I know you don't have any control over anything other than suppressing people's right to vote and using your guns and your abilities to talk.
Yeah, you said you give her one more time, like you're gonna do something. Are you serious?
No, you are not.
She's not under arrest.
What is for what? Under arrest for what? For trying to see something that our governor is doing? Our governor is signing a bill that affects all Georgians, and you're going to arrest an elected representative. Why does the governor have more power than a representative?
Why are you arresting?
Why are you arresting her?
That's what I'm asking.
Stop arresting her.
Why are you arresting her?
Cite the violation. Cite the code. What is she in violation of? I want you to cite the code. Cite the code. Cite it. What do you cite the code? Cite the code. Cite the code. Why are you arresting her? Under what? Under what?
Back up. Get out of the way.
Under what law are you arresting her?
And of course, the cops wouldn't respond to all of those pleas to find out why this state legislator was being arrested for doing seemingly nothing. The reason for that is, of course, there was no justifiable reason. We understand why those two white cops would want to arrest her in that situation, but they're hardly going to say that while being filmed. Now, she was eventually released and is now facing 2 felony charges: felony obstruction and preventing or disrupting General Assembly session. We saw the whole video. Not entirely sure how the General Assembly was being disrupted by that. And I believe that the felony obstruction charge is one of the most common charges that the Capitol insurgents are facing. So we're supposed to believe that what you just saw from Representative Cannon there rises to the level of the QAnon shaman or the people who are beating cops with flagpoles. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I guess that's knocking while black. And that there's a 0% chance that a white male Republican legislator would have been arrested under similar circumstances for knocking on a door. A state legislature for knocking on a door. Now, that's insane. By the way, inside there was basically about 9 white men standing around taking away the voting rights of black people. And then they had 2 white police officers escort a black legislator away for being the outrage, the felony of knocking on a door. Okay, so now I actually want to show you guys another video of guys who knocked on a door in a different way and who actually did not get arrested on the spot. Let's watch that video and see if we can tell a difference. So I want to be clear that first part was the groaning you heard was the cop. He was trapped in that door and they're mangling him. The second part of that video is when they were tasing a police officer, not the police officer tasing the rioters. The rioters tasing the police officer. They did not get arrested on the spot. The state legislator in Georgia arrested on the spot. And people say, oh, we can't see the racism. We don't know. Disparate treatment. What name so? We can't see the disparate treatment. No, that's flat out racist. We're totally back to Jim Crow era. Republicans are not trying to win Democratic elections fairly anymore. They're just basically saying, that's it. We're going back to putting the hoods on. And we're gonna try to make sure as little black people vote as possible in Georgia. And if they dare even politely knock on our door, we will have them arrested and facing felony charges. That's the racist Republicans down in Georgia. Let me be clear.
Hey, Jack, you're absolutely right. And it breaks my heart because I never thought that in this day and age, 2021, we would see such sort of disparity in our United States of America. And the other thing about it is there was once a time where I think there were at least some Republicans who had a spine or a backbone that if they were going to actually try to pass something that was controversial, they would invite people who were opposed to it and say, fine, you want to come to the signing ceremony? You're welcome to it. You want to disrupt the signing ceremony? Then at that point, you'll be taken out and I'll have a funny retort or whatever it is. But to actually lock the door, to only have 8 or 9 people, all white men in there, do this essentially in secret and not allow anybody in the room, and then to have your state police with their ridiculous caps haul somebody away because she tries to knock on the door. I mean, she couldn't have been more polite to the state police and to the situation there. I mean, this is one of the most sickening videos I think that I've seen going back now to January 6th. Again, it's the flip side of the coin. And I think for people who say, oh no, we don't have racism in the United States or it's isolated. No, we have institutional racism all across the United States. And you just saw the latest example coming from Georgia.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about the knocking, because look, when I saw the headline of this story, I came in with a totally open mind, because sometimes activists do significant disruption. And you heard me say it 100 times on the show if you watched for a while. I said, look, let folks make their protests. It's a free country. And then if there's disruption that lasts too long, at some point, police have to come in. It doesn't matter if it's left wing or right wing, right? So I thought maybe that's what was going on here. Then I watched the video and I'm like, there was no disruption. She wasn't even allowed in the room. And all she did was polite knocking on the door. I was just stunned by the video. Yeah. And so I guess in Georgia, they think, yeah, no, black people aren't allowed to do anything. We don't care if they have power. We don't care if they were elected. We don't care how polite they are. No, we're openly racist. And if you dare complain about white rule in Georgia, we'll just arrest you and try to ruin your life.
We're going to, in just a second, we're going to run through some of what was in that bill. We're holding off on it because we've covered it many times, actually. But we want to make sure that if anyone knew, they see that really fast. Though I did want to mention, I think it's amazing, and maybe it's not even worth pointing out. Maybe it's just so obvious that I shouldn't think it's noteworthy. But the Republicans lost control of the House a couple of years ago. A couple months ago, they lost the presidency. An incumbent president lost. Almost never happens in America. And they lost the Senate, with Georgia simultaneously electing 2 Democrats. And in the months since, there hasn't been, as far as I can tell, and maybe I'm in a bubble, any talk about what they need to do to win in the future. Like, what's a new legislative path we can follow? What are some new solutions we can push to try to form a narrative for an election? In the past, even when the Republicans had lost, there might have been talk about, we need to do a postmortem, figure out how can we appeal to new voters. Certainly the Democrats have had to, in the wake of losses, rethink how they pitch themselves. I haven't heard any talk about that on the right, following their massive losses year after year, an incumbent president losing by millions and millions of votes. There's just nothing. And obviously this is the solution, just try to make it so that fewer people can vote. But it's just weird that they don't even have to pretend. Just like during the election, Trump didn't have to pretend to have a platform. He could be asked incredibly softball questions by Sean Hannity. What do you want to do with your second term? Over and over he's asked that. Never had an answer, never had anything he wanted to do. And going into the midterms, I still haven't heard anything that they want to do. Anyway, really fast. The bill that was just passed would require voters to provide a driver's license or state-issued ID card number to request and submit absentee ballots. It would curtail the use of ballot drop boxes, limiting their placement to early voting locations and making them accessible only while the precinct is open. The legislation also gives the Georgia State Elections Board the ability to effectively take over county election boards in areas that it determines are in need of oversight. The Secretary of State would also be removed as chair of the State Elections Board, a proposal that critics say would strip the state's top elections official of a key power. It also takes aim at the state's absentee ballot request period, setting the deadline for voters to request absentee ballots at 11 days before an election. It also calls for prohibiting people from giving food or drinks to voters waiting in line to cast their ballots. So it really is, it's everything. It's cutting back on as many forms of earlier, more accessible voting as you can imagine. It is incredibly petty on a personal level, trying to make the act of voting more inconvenient, literally making you have to be hungry while doing it. And because we know their Secretary of State didn't solve all their problems his last time around, well, he's out. He doesn't have the power anymore, and the legislature can take over if they want. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, well, it looks like that's their strategy, John. I mean, you're asking what's the political strategy for winning again? One is we don't let the voters pick the politicians. The politicians pick the voters. They pick the voters they want to vote, and they try to deny the vote to anyone they don't want to vote. There's another word for it. It's called cheating. So they're doing it now. And look, we said this during the 2020 election between Trump and Biden, and as Georgia was a hotspot there, we said that basically the Republicans in Georgia were telling Trump, you idiot, we cheat before the election, not after. After the election, it's really hard and it's brazen and you're gonna get caught and you're obviously breaking laws. Before the election, you cheat so that
Cenk, I just lost your audio. I'm not sure if everyone is not hearing you.
Yeah, you know what? To Cenk's point,
Make sure
and the whole idea of sort of cheating. I mean, look, to literally starve people or to deny them, hydration because they have to wait in a line for 7 hours. I mean, they shouldn't have to be waiting in a line for 7 or 8 hours anyway. But can you imagine? I mean, as terrible as this video was of Cannon Park being dragged away from the Capitol, imagine what's going to happen at the next election when you see these incredibly long lines. And suppose, I'm down there and I see somebody who's having a medical condition or seems not to be doing well, and I throw them a bottle of water. Do I now face a felony? Do I now get dragged off by the state police because I happen to do the humane thing and provide somebody with water while they exercise their right to vote? That's crazy.
Insane.
We should be making it easier for people to vote, not more difficult. But to your points, this is the Republican playbook. It's Georgia, it's Iowa, it's Texas, it's all these states where they decided they cannot win on the merits, and it's not even worth doing any self-reflection now. To your point, John, about maybe the Republican Party should try to figure out what went wrong. No, this is all now about trying to rig this and to make this as difficult as possible, particularly for minority voters and minority districts. That is disgusting.
Yeah, and so look, some folks say, well, driver's license is a requirement, and they make you do it twice, etc. What's the big deal? Like this is my point about perspective that I make on the show all the time, because the overwhelming majority of you have a driver's license in your wallet right now, and you think, what's the big deal? I just take it out, right? Well, if you live in a city, you might not have a car, you might not need a car, then you don't have a driver's license. And what you have to do is you have to go through a giant rigmarole to go get a state-sanctioned photo ID that isn't a driver's license. And does that make you less likely to vote? Of course, and they know that. And the cities vote more Democratic, and they're honestly, socioeconomic conditions has a situation where there are black folks with less cars as a percentage of their population, right? So the Republicans know all that and they take advantage of it. And then they turn around and go, oh, doesn't everybody have a driver's license? Right? And so finally, well, actually two things. First, that brave legislator you saw, Representative Park Cannon, is gonna be on the Young Turks. She's gonna be on The Conversation on Wednesday at 5:30. She's being interviewed by Dr. Rashad Ritchie. You should check that out. You'll get her side of the view right here on the TYT network. And then last thing is, I'm gonna quote Bain here, of course. Victory has defeated you. He told Batman. And that's kind of what's happened to the Republicans here. They got so used to picking their own voters through gerrymandering, through voter purges, through all of these things that they got lazy. They thought, we never have to adjust. We'll just run the same playbook. And by the way, their playbook is called the Southern Strategy. And the Southern Strategy, as has been documented endlessly, is to appeal to racist voters. That's the very, very, very core of the Republican Party. So they don't have a plan B. And they brag about not being prepared. I mean, John made that point earlier where I was talking about how, look, normally you steal the elections ahead of time if you're the Republicans, but Trump didn't bother preparing. Sean Hannity just last night was like, look at Biden. He came in with a binder and was prepared for his press conference. He literally asked Kayleigh McEnany, Trump never prepared for press conferences, right? They're bragging about it. They're like, I mean, we're the lazy dumb party. And so our strategy is we don't let you vote. Well, thank you for admitting that you hate America. We always suspected it, and now it's crystal clear.
Well, and to be even clearer, I suppose. I mean, look, I think the Republicans might at least be able to start the argument. If let's just imagine, for argument's sake, for hell's sake, let's just suppose there's massive voter fraud, and there was provable voter fraud in state after state, and you couldn't decide who won. It was a mess. Okay, then at that point, sure, then do we need to have a conversation about how do we become more transparent? How do we cut down on voter fraud? But even in Georgia, they did multiple recounts, they did multiple audits and found the numbers were the same. There was no fraud. The legislation is to fix something that isn't broken. And again, that's why the Republicans, it baffles me because this is a party that has no shame, even less shame than they had 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And the direction of the party, I keep thinking, well, it can't get any crazier, and it just does.
Yeah. And by the way, I've got to make this point again that I made on the show yesterday, that those are the same exact guys who said there was no voter fraud at all in this election in Georgia. Remember? I mean, it's just the most famous thing. Trump kept complaining that the Republicans in Georgia said, no, seriously, there was no voter fraud here at all. Those same guys turn around and go, oh, we got to make sure black people can't vote in Georgia because the voter fraud's out of control. They have no shame left at all. They think the truth is optional, and their voters don't care about truth. So they came for the racism and stayed for the racism.
Yep.
Yeah. Why don't we quickly cover this next story? I think we can fit this in before our next break. Since the inauguration, Joe Biden has been facing a crisis, and it has been getting worse every day. And we have to give credit to Fox News for acknowledging it. That crisis, him not having a press conference. And at one point, it got so bad, as Aaron Rupar pointed out, he'd gone 49 days without a press conference, and they will not stand for that. That's why they were on the press office under Trump for going months and months and months and months without actually talking to reporters. They were very mad about that. Now, of course, Biden had a press conference, but what he didn't realize that was in having a press conference, he was turning one crisis into another. Because before, he hadn't had any press conferences. Now, he's only had one. 37 executive orders, they say, but just one news conference. Again, Aaron Rupar pointing that out. So, I mean, I think I know what the crisis will be after he has his second. I think I could do the math on that. But anyway, look, he had his press conference, And what's going to be interesting about this is that the criticism coming at Joe Biden is not particularly unified. Normally, Fox News is very good at staying on message, but depending on who you listen to on Fox, one of two things actually happened. Either Joe Biden was so barely able to keep it together that it's a wonder he didn't stroke out behind the podium, or it was such a magnificent performance that clearly it had to have been scripted. Either he was just reading off of something, or as some are saying, the media themselves were in on the script. But anyway, we're gonna have examples of both of those different kinds of criticism. Let's start though with Sean Hannity.
Serious questions, okay. Is Vice President Harris now in charge? Is she running the country? Is she gonna do the press briefing tomorrow? Because once again, Joe Biden seemed lost, dazed, and confused. Take it back at any, true or false? Did Donald Trump ever prepare for press conferences like this? Did he even prepare at all?
I love that precedent. All future presidents must be as lazy and unprepared as the dumbest one we've ever had. But anyway, yeah, so he couldn't get through it. So much so that Sean Hannity's ready to just move on. It's now the Harris presidency. / he also prepared too much for it. I don't know how you're supposed to respond to that. I think you're not really supposed to be able to.
Can I clarify one thing? And again, the Republicans, and they keep saying, oh, no press conferences for 49 days. But it's pretty funny, and 2 points. It's pretty funny to hear them say, oh, and by the way, Fox News has been shut out, frozen out from the White House when there's the reporter reporting from the North Lawn. The second point about it is Peter Doocy, their main reporter, he has asked Joe Biden questions. I mean, the idea that, okay, one formal news conference, that is somehow so different from Joe Biden going into the briefing room about something else and taking questions or being asked questions when he's on his way to the helicopter. I mean, they have access to the president. The reporters at the White House have access to Biden every week. The idea that, oh, well, but formal press conferences are different. No, they're not. The reporters continue to be able to ask questions of the commander in chief. This idea that it only counts if it's a formal White House press conference, that's a bunch of insanity. And again, Fox News, and we've seen the clips of Peter Doocy and Joe Biden pairing each other and Biden making some funny remarks back to Doocy. He gets his opportunity to ask questions. And so anybody at Fox News who says, oh no, Joe Biden is hiding from the press, they are flat out lying. And they're flat out, again, being shameful and shameless about the extent to which they lie.
Okay, just cherry on top of that irony was today, Doocy asked Jen Psaki, White House spokesperson, are we getting frozen out? You're asking the White House spokesperson a question. The irony is loaded into that question. Okay, so apparently not is the correct answer. So by the way, try being a progressive. Even in a Democratic administration, then you'll see what frozen out looks like.
How many questions did our reporter get?
Yeah. How many questions about the minimum wage? Oh, there was a question about whether Biden's going to run in 2024, but not a single question about his 2020 campaign promise to raise the minimum wage. I mean, yeah, to your point, it's the progressives who are certainly shut out or not getting access or don't have the opportunity. But anyway, I don't interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. God forbid anybody should ask about actual policy, goals that Biden said he had. I mean, shouldn't the $15 minimum wage be the first question asked in a sense? You said you were for $15 minimum wage. You actively killed $15 minimum wage. I mean, if you're Fox News, wouldn't you want to catch him on that hypocrisy? No, because you also work for corporations and you don't want people to have higher wages. You want them to have lower wages. So you want to do stupid antics like, as I'm being called on for this question, I'd like to ask if we're not being called on for questions. Okay. And then John's right about it's no winning with Hannity, right? He won't do a press conference. He's too prepared for the press conferences. But it doesn't matter because the Fox News audience isn't there for the intelligent commentary. Yeah. If they want an intelligent commentary, as Tyrion would say, they've come to the wrong place.
Yeah, and look, regardless of which of these often either contradictory narratives or even self-contradictory narratives, all of it is resting on a bedrock of every one of these hosts knows that their audience
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Didn't watch it.
Yeah.
So the only information they're going to have about it is whatever they are told by those hosts. Nobody saw it that's watching that, so they don't know. They criticized him for having too many notes. Like, how many press conferences were just Kayleigh McEnany flip to read her little line? They said Ari Fleischer was on Fox and said, no president has ever had notes for a press conference before. Trump would just have pieces of paper with big Sharpie letters written on it of the things he's supposed to say. It's just like, I guess we engage with this because we believe that press conferences do matter, that criticism of the president is important. They're doing this. It's not satire. I don't even know what this is. It has all of the sort of, to go back to TDR, the pomp and circumstance of criticism of the president, but without any substance. Like, they want their guy to have a question, but not to ask about anything important. Not even like, David was just criticizing Biden for breaking campaign promises. They would never make that criticism because they don't want the minimum wage to go up any more than many centrist Democrats do. The whole thing is just such a ridiculous waste of time.
It's also, I mean, to me, it's surprising how fragile Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and Fox News have become. I mean, wouldn't it make more sense for them to try to be strong and tough and, pick their battles? But when you whine, when you're like that 4-year-old who's like, oh, I can't get my ice cream today. I mean, it's annoying. And it's no wonder to me that Fox News is doing so badly compared to the other cable channels, because I think also their audience is sick of the whining and they want them to fight on legitimate stuff. This is not legitimate. And again, it's just, it's annoying. It's frustrating, the idea that, and it's, I think, a part of the downfall of Fox News, which is a whole other point. But again, to your point, John, I mean, White Houses prepare, and Cenk as well, White Houses prepare briefing books and notes for presidential speeches, for presidential meetings, for presidential news conferences. Certainly Ari Fleischer had his presidential briefing books for his news conferences. So this is a pretty thin reed that the Republicans are grasping.
Yeah, Chris Wallace, also on Fox News, said something to the effect of like, he's never seen a president have talking points like that for a press conference. Come on, Chris, you're better than that. That's a ridiculous thing to say. They've used prompters before. What the hell do you think a prompter is? They put a script in a prompter. It's not just a talking point, it's the whole conversation. So these guys pretending like, and just look, and to John's point, remember Sarah Palin? She wrote the words on her hand. You want to talk about talking points? And we saw the pictures of Trump's paper with like big words like freedom, me good, others bad. Those are also talking points. And it's so sad that they had to write those out. Anyway, last thing is, that celebration of laziness at the end was astounding to me. You remember when the Republican Party, and I remember this because I used to be a liberal Republican back in the 1980s and 90s. So at the time, they were pretending, and I realized later that they were pretending about everything. Everything was a lie, right? But they were pretending that they cared about the work ethic and you can get ahead by working hard and meritocracy and all that stuff. Now they're like, nobody wants to prepare. Biden, nerd, smart. You don't want to be smart. You want to be a dummy. Remember Trump? Hey, Kayleigh. He never prepared for anything, right? That's the kind of president you want. But in that moment, as I was astounded by their like celebration of stupidity and lack of hard work, I realized, oh my God, what am I talking about? Right-wingers in this country were built on laziness. They didn't want to do their own work so much that they brought in slaves to do their work for them. They've always been the laziest people in the country. Right-wingers are bums who don't want to work. So they're always trying to find somebody else to do their work. That's just a historical fact in America.
And the anti-intellectualism is, I think, a piece of this, right? Because you want to poo-poo on people who actually have thoughts and original ideas and debate policy and get into things. But if your whole point is, well, no, we want to appeal to the dumb masses and say, you know what, it's okay to be stupid because look at us. We're not preparing. Look at Donald Trump. He didn't prepare. It's okay for you not to take school seriously, not to learn, not to believe in science, because people who do are intellectuals, and we hate intellectuals. And that's yet another step on the road towards fascism.
Jake, why don't we do our second break?
Yeah, let's do it. We've got more amazing news when we return. That's the kind of tease you do when you don't remember what the next story is. We'll be right back. All right, look, stop banking with old dirty banks. They put your money in fossil fuels. I know it's tough to switch, but it feels tough. But just open an account. That takes just 5 minutes. And then you'll see, oh, that wasn't so hard. It's good. So Aspiration is the good guys. They don't put your money in fossil fuel nonsense that destroys the planet. You get cash back if you shop with other good guy stores like that are in the Conscious Coalition, Warby Parker, and so many others. And by the way, now you could win a lifelong TYT membership, be the first lifelong TYT member ever. So sign up at aspiration.com/TYT, aspiration.com/TYT. Okay, so let me read some of the comments here. Carrie in our members section wrote in, I've been voting for half a century, never had to show ID. Can you guess what my color skin is? Or the skin of color of my skin is? Yeah, okay. I mean, of course. It's always different rules. And this is a fun one. Recovering Pagan wrote in, if Ted Cruz went on a show like Survivor, he wouldn't need to be voted off the island. Everybody else would flee and leave him there by himself. Across the water over there are all the other contestants who immediately ran when they saw me. All right, here are the wonderful people who just joined on YouTube and became Young Turks members. Rose Jackson, Christy Jackson, word I can't, Psilocybin, the multiverse dragon. I like the multiverse dragon. There's a little bit of madness in there, but I think you'll be all right. So you can join below. You could also upgrade below. Tonight we've got a super fun post game, and we're gonna do a poll about whether a right-wing pilot should be fired or not. We're gonna have some fun with it. So check it out. You can do tyt.com/join, or you can hit the join button below. All right, more comments here. I'm gonna go to Stephanie Rampley on YouTube Super Chat. Well, we can add knocking on the door to the ever-increasing list of jogging, driving, sleeping, wearing masks, playing in the park, and bird watching, all while being black in America. SMH. SMH indeed. Dr. Zippy McScoots writes in a super chat, fun name. At this point, why are Republican states even bothering having elections? Just appoint whoever they want to Congress. Actually, that is what Georgia did. Kelly Loeffler was appointed. She's never won an election and she lost this election. So your like onion-like comment there turns out to be actually true. Okay, and she gave $2 million to get that appointment. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, David, and John with you guys. Please wrote in on Twitch. I like this comment. I wanted to read it. 7-month streak. Our 7-month subscribers heroes? I guess. He wrote in, and he's right. He's right. They are, in fact, heroes. If you guys are watching anywhere else too, if you have Amazon Prime, it's free for you on Twitch, and we get the revenue. So you help progressives, you help bring change in the world, and you help us bring the truth to the American people. As you can tell, very different, not just from right-wing media, but also from mainstream media. We actually care about the facts. That's what distinguishes us. So come join us. And Twitch is a great place to do that. Twitch.tv/TYT. If you got Amazon Prime, it's free for you, like I said. And last thing on that, tonight is 9:00 Eastern, Common Room, one of our super fun shows, much more informal, lots of laughs. You'll love it. Check that out at 9:00 tonight on Twitch. All right, John, what's next?
Let's do it. For the Republicans these days, Donald Trump is the kingmaker. But how does he rule? Pretty much exactly like you would think. In Ohio, they have this open Senate seat, and there are at least 4 different Republicans considered semi-serious that would like to be the nominee. So they need Trump's approval. So he effectively just has like an off-the-books version of Apprentice, where he has them duke it out and argue over who will be most loyal to him. The contenders in this particular case, although we're gonna see this repeated for many different states over the next couple of years, you have former state treasurer Josh Mandel, former state GOP chair James Timken, technology company executive Bernie Moreno, and investment banker Mike Gibbons. They flew down to attend a fundraiser to benefit a Trump-endorsed Ohio candidate looking to oust one of the 10 House Republicans who backed his impeachment. So he's there helping a House candidate, and they're going so that they can then be the Senate candidate eventually, down in Mar-a-Lago. What ensued was a 10-minute backroom backbiting session, lots of backs, reminiscent of Trump's reality TV show. Mandel said he was crushing Timken in polling. Timken touted her support on the ground thanks to her time as state party chair. Gibbons mentioned how he'd helped Trump's campaign financially. Moreno noted that his daughter had worked on Trump's 2020 campaign. And you might think, especially for that last one, what does that have to do with anything? Well, have you met Donald Trump? What do you think they were saying in that room? And look, we have an ad we can show you, and we can certainly speculate, but this is, I think we should all acknowledge, well, maybe we like the chaos on the right, I don't know. This is a really sad state for a major party to be in, where these are the sorts of things you need to do to get his nod, which could make or break your campaign.
Yeah, but John, as with everything with Trump, it's not that he started a lot of these problems. It's just that he's so much more brazen about it. In the issue of racism, the Republican Party ran the Southern strategy. That was the whole point of that, was to be racist, and that's not like some sort of hyperbole. That was literally the strategy. Let's go get racist voters in the South by being against civil rights. So when Trump just started saying racist things instead of using the dog whistle, people were shocked and chagrined. Why? Because he put an ugly face on an ugly policy? No, that's actually in a sense more honest, right? So same thing here. The corruption is totally systemic. Corporate Republicans do, corporate Democrats do it. So you have to have a check to get seen by a national politician, federal level politician. And if you pay them enough, they'll do whatever you want. So Trump is just taking the hood off, and he's taking all the pretense off here. So he just gets them in a room and goes, okay, what did you do for me? Based on whoever is gonna help me more, I'll probably make the decision based on that, or almost certainly. So, I mean, look at the thing that John just read you. And there's more too. Mandel was like, "Oh no, I was the first one to endorse you in 2016. So since I was your first asker, so you should pick me." And then Timken comes in and says, "No, but you appointed me at some point." And then Trump says, "Wait a minute, but you didn't say the guy I want fired, who's in the Republican Party, should be fired for supporting my impeachment. She said, no, I cleaned that up. Like, forget factual correctness, forget ideology. I am now politically correct. Don't worry. Yes, sir, dear leaders, sir, fascist leaders, sir. I am now politically correct. I have cleaned up my earlier principled position. And then look at the other two, like family members. Yeah, well, what do you need? You need a deal. You need a favor. No problem. And the other guy's just flat out like, I bribed you. Remember, I'm the guy who bribed you the most. I gave you the most money, so you should give it to me. He'll probably win. And by the way, like I said, that is American politics. It's almost all of American politics. They're just not as brazen about it.
Well, and Cenk, your point about ugliness is terrific, because it reminds me of the ugliness that we saw in the White House, where there's Donald Trump. He enjoyed pitting aides against each other and having the fights in front of him. He enjoys when people are arguing in front of him and tearing each other, and he can just sort of sit back and enjoy it. And clearly that was what was going on in Florida. And I just am struck by how humiliating it is to the people who are involved, who may be serious about running for Senate or serious about policy, and to have to put up with this. If that's the ticket these days, the ticket to entry in Republican politics, I think they're going to chase away. I think this should be this should be celebrated, I think, among progressives and those of us on the left, because it's going to chase away talent on the right and conservative talent, and there is some of it out there. It's going to chase them away because nobody with any self-respect wants to go through this malarkey. And so great. I think Donald Trump should have a powwow for every open race, every group of candidates. He should be the kingmaker. Great.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, go ahead, John. I want to make sure
that we get to this ad. You might recall Ron DeSantis ran some of the most cringy political ads, I think, ever, about how he's going, like, all of his young kids' education growing up is going to be about how the kids should try to be like Trump and all that. Well, there's going to be some competition in terms of how cringy these ads can become. I want to show you one from one of the four who was in that room, Jane Timken. Here is an ad trying to make the case for her.
I'm running for the United States Senate to stand up for you. Just like when I stood next to President Trump and supported his America First agenda. As Ohio Republican Party chairman, I cleaned house of the Kasich establishment who tried to elect Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. I unified the party and delivered a second decisive Ohio win for President Trump. As your senator, I will advance the Trump agenda without fear or hesitation.
Yeah, but before you get to advancing the Trump agenda, could you define it? Could you mention anything? Because you said that you're going to stand next to people. You're going to stand next to them and talk about a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with any policies whatsoever. I have no idea what she stands for, what differences, if any, exist between her and Mandel or any of these other candidates. But I think that ad is going to be like the prototype for virtually every candidate over the next 4 years. It is just, I'm the most loyal to Trump. There's not going to be any acknowledgement of any economic problems you have. And remember, the right only supports Trump because of economic anxiety. But they're certainly not going to advertise to try to appeal to that. It's just the loyalty.
No, they're becoming parodies now. I didn't just kiss his ring, I kissed his ass. And that's the ad. Eventually the ads are going to break down to, I bribed Trump even more. While my opponent was giving him $100,000, I gave him $200,000. And everyone's like, yeah, he bribed Trump more. Oh, we love that guy. Drain the swamp. Wait, what? Okay, so that's where we are right now. And 2 more points. I think David made a great point. I think there's this could do long-term damage to the Republican Party, because here's a bunch of betas coming in and basically sending subliminal message to the voters. We're pathetically weak. You can see us with your own eyes groveling to this guy. And so in order to be a Republican now, you have to be a pathetic groveler. And that's not such a bad thing for Democrats. I mean, a Democratic leadership for 40, 50 years in this country sent subliminal message saying, we're pathetically weak. We will surrender to any Republican if they happen to walk by on any issue. They're better than us. And people believed them and generally voted Republican. Now the Republicans are turning around and saying, remember, every one of us is incredibly weak. The minute we see a fascist, we all grovel on the ground. I'll smear my face on the ground. Trump. And that kind of weakness it's a turnoff in the long run for sure. But when you're in the room with them, though, you have to pretend to be tough. So Mandel talking about Timken said, "Oh, I'm crushing her in the polls," and then this is so designed for Trump. Here, I'll give you one more quote from the meeting. And by the way, they were in a circular table where they had to face each other. Soon it'll be an octagon. And Mandel
it's going to be that scene out of The Dark Knight. Trump is just going to break a pool cue and throw it on the ground.
Yeah. He's like, I was wondering what would break first, your spirit or your body, or your self-respect. Anyway, Mandel says, Mr. President, I only know two ways to do things: either not at all or balls to the wall. He said this, okay? I hired a bunch of killers on my team. I'm a killer, and we're gonna win the primary and then the general. They think like you appeal to Trump by being over the top, fake masculine. And he's like literally we're talking about Hunger Games, right? This is like Hunger Games. And he's literally saying, that woman over there, I will kill her. Now, I know that it's symbolic. I don't think he's going to actually murder her. It's Republicans, you never know. But look, he is verbally, rhetorically saying, I will kill for you. And that's it, Republican Party 101 now.
And it's good for Democrats because it keeps the Civil War going. A bunch of Neanderthals firing shots at each other in the circular firing squad, whatever sort of analogy you want to use. And it's only agitating people who are involved in this process. And so I think great news for Democrats. At a certain point, I fear the Republican Party will make its decision about Donald Trump, yea or nay, and then they'll unify. But in the meantime, I think this is great.
Yeah. Unless, of course, they win again. All right. So we got to go. First of all, you got to check out David on RHQ. That's Rebel HQ. He's killing it over there. So make sure you check out the videos on tyt.com, on YouTube, Facebook, etc. And Damage Report's all right. And John hosts that show, and he's a dragon of some sort. But oh man, I love ribbing Johnny Pie. I haven't called you Johnny Pie in forever. Got to get back to that.
You know, this is my first time on with John, and John, this is an honor to be on with you. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I doubt it, but okay. No, all right. You know what, John? John is a killer. He kills things on Damage Report. That's why it's called Damage Report. So you got to look around for the damage after John's done, okay? So check that out too. All right, you guys are awesome. Thank you. And folks, stay right here, because when we come back, Tucker Carlson and his guests are flat out like, yeah, I think the right wing should start voting for fascists. And they're like, yeah, Tucker's like, well said. It's amazing. It's amazing. And more barbarian stuff from Trump saying, oh no, the rioters, they were good guys. So I'll show you some of the good guys when we return too.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.